Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rico Borrego.
I am your other co-host, Tony Borrego.
And this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, the podcast that turns 1 year old today. 1 years old. 1 year old? 1 years old?
1 year.
1
No
year.
plural.
Tony and I started this podcast. Technically, it was October of last year, 2022. But our first episode did not get posted until, I want to say, November 15th. So this is like a week or so early. But this podcast is about to turn 1 year anniversary. And that's not the only birthday today. It is also Tony's birthday. Happy birthday, Tony.
Thank you. Turning the big 23.
Nice. You're as old as Pearl Jam's binaural.
Oh, fantastic. I like it.
And what better way to celebrate your birthday but with the birthday of this podcast, something that you and I have enjoyed doing this last year. I'm not going to say I'm shocked we've lasted this long, but I am shocked, but I'm like proud that you and I have pretty much stuck to a consistent schedule for a full year. We've pretty much done an episode a week. We've done basically 4 episodes per month, maybe 5, for the longer months, but we've been consistent, and I think we've grown a lot. You feel like we've changed a lot from the first couple episodes to these most recent ones?
Yeah, and I feel like I remember when we first started the podcast, you brought up the idea because we would have hour-long phone calls just about music, and you're just like, why not just document it? Why not just make it a podcast? And I feel like we've accomplished that. We've gotten each other into a lot of albums and bands, that we like. And then additionally too, I feel like the production value of the podcast has definitely increased, large part thanks to you. I know you've been doing some more editing, including, songs, and you've definitely been on top of, getting the schedule, the releasing. So a big part to Rico for this, guys.
Yeah, no, it's been fun learning. You taught me how to use, the audio to edit this podcast. I've had to learn the website we use that posts the podcast everywhere, every week. It was a little trial and error for a while. Do you remember the first episode we actually recorded? Because the first one that was posted was our first album for album episode, Tragically Hip. But that was not the actual first episode we recorded.
No, it was not. The first one we recorded was us ranking the Pearl Jam album openers, which funnily enough, was it the official Pearl Jam page?
No, it was like a fan page.
Oh, it was just a fan page. Okay.
Yeah. The one that loves Jeff Ament for like Jeff Amet's Army or something.
Oh, wait. Jeff Amet's Army is a fan page?
You thought it was an official Jeff Ament page?
Yeah.
No.
Oops.
It's a fan. It's people who like love Jeff Ament. Yeah. Like there's ones for Stone, I'm pretty sure, and Mike. Yeah, but that one's for Jeff.
I thought it was like his crew. I didn't think it was him personally, but
no, it's like a fan page.
Well, shout out to them for high enough posts to fool me.
But you were saying that they posted something, right? Recently?
Yes, they did a list of the top Pearl Jam openers.
Yeah, or I think they linked another website who maybe did a list.
Okay, I'll let you take over this. More than I.
Well, the funny thing was, I tried actually. You sent me the link, and I opened it, but it wasn't very mobile friendly. And I didn't. That was partially why I didn't get, because they didn't just do the list. It was like each page was its own, like it would show you number 11. And then you had to click next page to see the next one, which I don't love.
That's the worst.
I like that they had a paragraph about why they put it in that spot, but it just wasn't mobile friendly. So I didn't, but I also stopped after seeing that they ranked Last Exit as their least favorite opener. I was like, screw this. And I didn't read the rest of the list. I'm like, this is not valid.
That's why I didn't even open the list, because I already knew that you and I had superior lists. So I didn't even bother.
Yeah. But yeah, we recorded, I mean, like you said, it started because you and I, we're long distance, and now that we've gotten older, you and I agree so much on our music. When we were younger, we would butt heads a lot because we both wanted to have our own music identity. So like I would get into bands that you would just like not care about, YouTube, Bruce Springsteen, and then you would get into bands I don't care about, like Primus and you know
Um, whatever
um
experimental thing I was trying to get
yeah,
into
or
at the
even other
time.
bands that like I listen to now, like Incubus and stuff like that, Sly and the Family Stone. So, but now that we got older, it's like we agree so much more. And even when we don't, we can have these conversations where we're not like fighting with each other. Like they're usually
They're
funny or
civil.
yeah, and we actually get a lot from these conversations. So I was like, why don't like we do a podcast? I mean, like, does there need to be a millionth podcast about music? No, but I thought we'd have a unique enough angle that we're brothers. We both like play music. We know like a lot. We're not just like a casual music listener. Like for both of us, music is our main hobby and passion.
You
Slightly
know,
different, but
our
yeah, like
greatest
it's
source of dopamine.
yeah, basically. So we were like, I was like, why don't we do like a podcast? And it was a little trial and error, like I said at the start, because it's like, okay, we got to use Zoom. Okay, how do you use Zoom? How do you record Zoom? I at the time didn't have didn't really have my own laptop, and my microphone just wasn't like the right type for recording a podcast with. And then when we did that first episode where we ranked, you know, in order of our least favorite to favorite Pearl Jam album openers, and we did Zoom, I didn't have it set up to where it would record the audio file separately, where it would make it so much easier to edit. Where we could raise and lower the volumes of our individual audio tracks. So when we listen to it back, not only due to my poor mic quality and laptop, and the fact that they were recorded together instead of separate, it just didn't sound that good. And because it was our first ever time doing a podcast, it was like I think almost close to 2 hours long. Which it makes sense because as you guys have noticed, we can make even a small topic go on for a long time. But then to talk about like 11 different Pearl Jam songs and rank them individually instead of like together, that just it was too long. And maybe one day we will release it just for fun. But after that we kind of started to learn how to you know talk better on the podcast, certainly learn how to edit better. And I got better equipment, and we started rolling with we're doing these segments every month, album for album. um and
You know,
then
we've had guests on the show now.
yeah, I mean, we were lucky enough, we've had our sister on the show, we've had a couple of your friends, Tony, Ishan, and
Bryce.
Bryce, and then my friend Chris for a couple episodes. And yeah, and I didn't even know that we were going to be doing something like that, and that's been really fun. Those are some of my favorite episodes we've done. And we've done like games, and we've talked about some, like your own music, Tony, that you've released. And
Right, right.
we've done like special like holiday themed episodes. And it's been really fun. And even when we have like a busy week, I still look forward to doing these every week.
Even
um
if sometimes, like let's say I'm not having the best day, by the end of the podcast, usually I come out feeling a lot better. Or, maybe I'm just not feeling as inspired about music, but the podcast, just talking about it definitely, ignites that flame for me.
yeah, and it's I also feel like especially nowadays, especially even like after doing the podcast for a year, I feel like our music tastes are super similar now. Like there's definitely still some bands and artists that like, you know, even though I've heard now, let's say Doors album, and even though I really enjoyed it, I never will be as big as a fan of the Doors as you. Same with you and like maybe Spoon or even the Hip. But like, now that you've had exposure to them, I feel like we can even just talk about those albums and make good conversation like that.
Or
And
something that you had mentioned was, I think you said it for like Jim Morrison and even Sly Stone. Hearing those records, you kind of heard their influence in certain artists that you listen to. And so things like that are really cool to hear, and it kind of makes you appreciate music in appreciate different qualities of music.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it definitely helps too that we're related. I feel like that's also where we get our similarities. Like you were just saying, right before we started this episode, that like you and I, we care about what you and I like to call the lore when it comes to bands and albums and songs. Like we love to learn about like the history behind our favorites. And and some people don't, some people just don't go out of the way to know that information. There's a lot of casual music listeners who just listen to a song and they like it. Maybe it's because they hear it on the radio or whatever, and they maybe go put it on their liked playlist on Spotify, but maybe they don't dive more into that band or artist. And like here on the podcast, I like to think we do the opposite. We make the purpose to deep dive and to research and to learn as much as we can, because generally you and I get a lot from that, and partially that's because we kind of consider ourselves musicians, or at least you do. I play music and stuff, and it's really just for my own enjoyment. But I think that's another aspect too that can add to these conversations, is the fact that we're looking at it from the point of view of like everyone in the band or everyone recording the record.
Which is why before this podcast here, we just spent 15 minutes talking about a line about M&Ms that was omitted.
From a Pearl Jam song, yeah. um yeah, so we have fun, talking about the lore and the background, and we've also done some other fun episodes on the podcast, where we've done like a music bracket when we did our March Madness episode. We've done
That's
like
right.
games where we've guessed each other's ranked songs on a specific album. We've done some Sporkle quizzes, where it's just like naming all the songs from a band's studio albums. And
The one we did with Tessa was pretty that one was kind
yeah,
of wild.
the card game, yeah, where like it gives you music prompts, and you're trying to pick the perfect song for the prompt, and then the other sibling has to pick their favorite. Yeah, that was, yeah, I mean,
That one got
I,
me heated. I'm not gonna lie.
so I wanted, I thought for this anniversary episode, one of the things we should do, and we're just going to do this for fun. You don't have to have them in a specific order, but I think it'd be fun if, we maybe listed our top three albums we've given each other from album for album, since that's probably, I would say, our biggest series on this podcast. Maybe our top three songs from any of those albums that we've given each other. And then I think it also would be fun to maybe just talk about our top three episodes, some of our favorite ones we've done. Because, yeah, I've loved doing every episode. There definitely are some that we think went smoother than others, or one where we just had more fun and more excitement. So, now, Tony, for your albums, I think I know what your favorite album that I've given you on this
I
podcast.
okay. I don't know my top three for sure. I will say that, but I'm positive you can guess number one and two.
Yeah. So number one, and I will say this was the most shocked I've been on this podcast, I think, was how much you loved Bruce Springsteen's album Darkness on the Edge of Town.
Ding 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 ding. You are
Yeah.
correct.
That, I mean, like, I think at the time you even said like, yeah, this was my favorite. And it's definitely the one that you were most surprised by. Maybe especially too, because growing up, I think that was one of the artists when I got really into him and I tried showing you any of his songs. They were the opposite at that time of what you wanted to listen to. You wanted like the weird, either like, Primus stuff, or even like the darker, heavier, like Soundgarden, Alice in Chains. So Bruce Springsteen was just not up your alley. But then,
Well, to be
years later,
fair,
but
the
years later,
Bruce
you
song
got into Beach Boys,
that
which
is
is an
true.
influence on Bruce. So like, you just weren't ready, I feel like, at that time for Bruce
Well, okay, when you were
mentally.
showing me Bruce songs, you were showing me stuff like Hungry Heart and the ties that by yeah 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 yeah.
Well,
Come
because
on, come
well,
on.
part of that, yeah, I've been told too from Lindsay that I don't give people the best song suggestions. Like, I think I give people the songs I'm most excited about, but not what suits their musical taste. Because there was the same thing with Lindsay, where like, when I got really, I mean, she knew Spoon before me, but when I was getting more into their music, I'd show her some Spoon songs she didn't know, and she'd be like, "Yeah, these are good." But then I showed her like "Whisper, I Listen to Hear It," which is a song on Hot Thoughts that we talked about on that episode, And she was like, "What? This is like the best Boone song I've ever heard. Like, why wasn't this the first one you showed me?" Same thing with the hip. Like the first song I think I showed her was like Bob Cajun. She was like, "Yeah, it's nice," but then I showed her like fully, completely, um, the title track off that album, and she was like, "Oh no, this is awesome! Like, why wasn't this the first thing you showed me?" So, admittedly, I think I've been pretty bad in the past about giving song suggestions to people, so I apologize. But yeah, I mean the Bruce one, that's your favorite by far, right? Maybe not by far, but like that's the one that I think just you kept going back to, if I'm correct.
I wouldn't want to say by far, from the number two spot, but in
Yeah.
general, by far. And what really surprised me about me enjoying it so much is I enjoyed it in so many ways. I enjoyed the songs themselves. I enjoyed the album, like the cohesion of it. I instantly admired Bruce for the way he leads his band, the energy, the musicianship. And I also, it was one of those albums where I was able to kind of like put a lot of emotion to. You go through tough times in life, or you have happy, bad feelings, whatever. And sometimes you can just put them into an album. I'm not sure if you feel that way personally, but I was really able to connect with the album, I suppose.
Oh yeah, yeah. Sometimes an album will hit you way harder during a moment in your life than another time in your life.
Right.
I've had that happen all the time.
So I think the timing was also just right for that. I think from any point from here on in the future, if you were to give it to me, I think I still would have really enjoyed it. But it just hit so hard.
Yeah. So I know that's your number one. And then number two, I think is the first episode we ever did, the first album for album I gave you, which was the Tragically Hips Fully Completely, because I just remember when we did that episode, maybe it was just because it was the start of the podcast, but I remember you just saying like you weren't calling it like a top 10 album you ever heard, but it was you were just going back to it so much. You were like, I don't know if it's just because your job at the time, you were just so much time to listen to music, but you were just like, I remember you just saying like, I can't stop listening to it, even though again there were some songs you like more than others. You weren't calling it perfect. It was just like you were really digging it. So I believe that's your number two.
Bingo, that is correct. Yeah, when you first gave me that album, I don't know if it was just because it was the first episode and I really wanted to prepare, but I just found myself playing it over and over. Like I probably had listened to it at least 15 times all the way through by the time we did the ep, which is pretty crazy because I can't say that about all the other episodes we have done. Um, and you had talked about not always giving the best songs, when showing the best songs when you're introducing someone to a band. But I think that was probably the best album to start with for the hip, I'm going to guess. And yeah, I don't, and I don't think that one was necessarily the timing that you gave it to me. I think I just really enjoyed it. I just found it solid. All the songs I liked. You had actually kind of in celebration of me finally purchasing a better turntable, you had gifted me that album so kindly, and I enjoyed it just as much. So yeah, those two albums right there, fantastic. Love
Yeah.
them.
And to add, kind of going back to this new rating system we've given our albums, would you buy it on vinyl? I gifted you the Tragically Hip one, but you saw Darkness at a record store and you bought it. Like you were like, I love this album so much, I want it as my collection, which really
Oh,
shows that
didn't
like,
even think twice about it.
yeah, you're like, this is perfect. And thankfully, that's an album that most record stores should have either like an original copy, used copy, or like a reissue. So
Right,
um,
right. I've always seen it, I've always seen it there ever since I've started like checking.
yeah.
Um, and
Now, oh,
I was gonna say honestly, it might be one of those records too that I would like enough. Like down the road, like if my copy got like damaged, I probably would get like another copy.
oh
Honestly,
yeah, yeah.
I mean,
That's one
plus it's
where,
not too expensive, so that's more reasonable.
yeah. Well,
But
for example, I updated my copy. I had an original, and it wasn't
oh,
even that bad sounding, but there was a couple songs where it was a little rough, and I love the album so much. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go buy a new reissue copy that it's totally clean and sounds great. So yeah, that's definitely one of those albums where it's like right away you need to have a good copy. Now, as far as your number three, or again, we're not in that, they don't have to really be in order, but I just gonna let, I know you probably don't even really have a third option because I feel like a lot of these next couple albums are close. Like I feel like the first two are like distinctively like your top two. But if you had to like pick a third favorite, I don't know what it'd be, so I'm just gonna let you think about it and come up with the answer.
Well, I'll say this. I've been meaning to kind of go back and listen to some of the other albums you had given me, but just last week, in preparation for this episode, I have gone back and listened, and some of the albums I've just really enjoyed a lot more than when I first heard it. Not that I didn't enjoy them, but now I can pretty much appreciate like most of the songs, or at least appreciate them more. And picking the third favorite is tough. Okay, I'm gonna have to do. It's a tie for three, and I'll explain why. It's a tie between Narrow Stairs from Death Cab
Okay.
and Odd Soul from Mute Math.
Interesting. I did not think that the Mew Math would be as high up.
Yes, and that's what's interesting. So with Death Cab, that fits more with like someone like Elliott Smith, something that I can probably connect with more, and is honestly maybe more of my style. But the musician in me really does love Odd Soul. The thing with Odd Soul and Narrow Stairs is that there's a few songs that I don't love, but going back, I really can appreciate them more now. Like I do appreciate the closing track now of Odd Soul. I can't even tell you what it's called top of my head. I'm so
In no
sorry.
time.
Yes, that one. I would not. It's still my least favorite, but I definitely appreciate it more. But something about Odd Soul that kind of like maybe I like this more than I thought is that it has such a sound to it production wise. He's got a good vocal style. The musicianship's awesome. It's an exciting record.
For sure.
But even looking back at some of the other albums, like I think a few months ago I listened to Octung Baby, and I really dug that one. I was kind of sleeping on it. I was like, why haven't I gone back sooner?
And it's hard because we're constantly like you can go back and listen to them, but we always have a new album to listen to because we always, like obviously like right now, next week we're going to be recording this month's album for album. But even when we finish that, we only have like a gap of a week, and then by then we already have to give each other a new album. That way we have time to listen to it to record the episode for the following month. So it is
or
hard, or you're listening to your own music or new releases.
or sometimes when I'm trying to think of an album to give you, I'm actually listening to a couple different albums, trying to figure out which I think would be best for, whether it's what you would like more, what would make a better discussion.
And that's the hardest part for me is like, do I go for my favorite from this band or artist, or do I go with what is considered their best? Because sometimes that's not my favorite. Or do I go with what I think you'll like the most?
Right. There's definitely a lot of a handful of albums I wish I either waited to give you, or I wish I picked a different one. But that's all part of the experience.
Yeah, and we plan to keep doing this podcast as long as as long as we're still enjoying it and we have the time, and so we're gonna get to all these albums. Like I would love to eventually give you majority of like Spoon's albums or pretty much almost all of the Hips albums. So
And that's where it
we'll get
gets
there.
tough though, because as much as I think some albums like let's say with Bruce, like I definitely do think Bruce deserves another episode or two of me, my thoughts on an album. But a
You fear
part of me,
it might not be topped.
well, that is something to consider. But for me though, I'm like, okay, I love Darkness so much. Like, come on, I have to at least listen to a couple of his albums, right now.
I see what
I'm
you're saying.
excited
Yeah,
to. Same with like
yeah,
the Hip. They have they have a pretty big catalog too, right?
yeah. I mean, definitely not like Bruce's,
Not
but yeah,
Bruce
they
size,
have
but
like I think 12 studio albums. So
right. I mean, is as much as we could do this podcast for 12 years, and I slowly hear all the records, I think there will be a point where I'm gonna have to jump in.
yeah, I might give you a suggestion too. Like I might say, okay, you know, I'm not going to give you a hip album, probably for like the rest of the year. So here's an album to listen to on your own time. I just like doing it for the podcast because we will always have a concrete, this month that we're going to pick a day and we're going to sit down and record for like, roughly an hour and a half to 2 hours and talk about that album exclusively, as opposed to just you and I texting each other whenever we have a chance in between work and, our daily lives. So that is the one difference too, is I feel like the podcast allows us to give us that time where we can just talk about the album, whether it's positive stuff or whether it's negative stuff, whether it's us disagreeing on an album or whatnot.
Right, right. Okay, so I've got to know now. I am ready to guess your top three albums because I think I
Okay.
actually have I think I have a solid guess for each spot.
Okay.
Okay. Now, one that I'm actually a little surprised that I'm saying it's your favorite, but I'm gonna go for it. I think your favorite album that I've given you so far is Light Grenades by Incubus, which you
And
did buy.
and like the Bruce, it's I think it's exactly like the Bruce where you're correct because
Yes.
I think it was the one I was most surprised by, mostly because like I had just very like I know some of their biggest hits, but like none of them really captured me that much.
Which
I
honestly, I'm kind of the same way. If I were to look at their actual hits, I'd be
Yeah,
similar.
and like I literally had just seen them live like I think earlier that month or a couple months before, and I was so just not like into them that I guess I just didn't pay enough attention to their live show. And I know they only played, I think, one song from that album live or two. So it's not like I missed out on hearing a lot of those songs live, but
Do
so
you
when you
know which
gave it
song it was? Was it
uh
Animali?
and Dig, I think those are the two that they did
Oh,
live because they're like the
nice.
two biggest songs, singles. So
Right.
I think they actually I think I remember I told you they like do like a VIP like sound check, like a couple songs for early people, like people who bought the expensive tickets. And
Right.
they did the I can't think of the full name, the pendulum one.
Pendulous Threads.
Yeah, they did that one, which that's not my top like five on an album, so I'm not sad that I missed that one,
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
but yeah, that was the album I was like, out of all the ones you've given me, is the one I was most surprised because unlike some of the others that we're gonna probably talk about, um, I just knew so little from them. And what I did know, I didn't hate, I just was a little indifferent towards. And I think it helped that it was produced by a producer that I listened to a lot of, Brendan O'Brien, friend of podcast, official friend of the podcast. Um, and it has more of like a straight ahead rock sound as opposed to like maybe the 90s era, early 2000s, like DJ scratching, which I know like maybe not as much as Linkin Park, but they're kind of known for that because they're kind of known for being in between a couple different genres. But like Light Grenades is just, I would just call it like rock, like it's just one kind of thing, and I think that helped. And I think it's a fun album. Like it has definitely has different moods. Like if you want like the darker, moodier stuff, you have like the opener Quicksand. You have um what's the big thing? Animali. You have that.
Right, right.
Um, then you have like kind of really fun stuff like um I mean, I don't know if I'd call it like fun, but like kind of the more like Oil and Water, where it's like a
Hmm.
little bit, it's like rock, but it's got like, little pianos and cool production touches. And then the other song, why am I blanking on the song
Diamonds and
title?
Coal?
Diamonds and Coal. Yeah, that
Which
one
wasn't
is,
that like your favorite too?
yeah. Or even like Grenades, like that one, I was not expecting. Like I knew they were heavy, but I thought, I don't know, like I was not expecting that one to, the title track to be as heavy as it was. Um, and then yeah, like a couple songs later, you get Diamonds and Coal, which is like kind of the opposite of that song, but I love, so I just love the diversity. And there was only a couple songs that, and even those couples, like the Pendulous Threads one, or um
The
the
Earth to
Earth
Bellas.
to Bellas, yeah, like those have grown on me, and I do think the album flows really well. So, and yeah, and I saw that it was on sale online, the vinyl, and I picked it up because I was like, I like it that much. So yeah, you're correct. That is my number one.
All right. And number two and three, I'm not sure which would come first. And I'm saying this because one of them you have on vinyl, but I think you might actually like one of them more, or maybe you would say it's a better album. Um,
And they're close. So if you're like just slightly wrong, like, it's
you know
totally
what?
understandable.
I'll go with the fact that you have it on record on vinyl. That is, because my top two I have on record. I don't know why I keep saying on record. Um, But I'm gonna say Shangri La Di Da from STP, my favorite album of theirs.
So it's kind of interchangeable, but I would probably actually say my second, even though I think I've listened to it slightly less.
Oh, wait. Can I say it? Can I say what
Yeah,
your
you
second
can
is
say it.
then?
Yeah.
Odyssey and Oracle.
Oh no. No,
Oh,
no.
wait. One more guess.
One more guess. Go ahead.
Morrison Hotel.
No,
Okay,
I don't know if
just
you're just forgetting about it, even though I think we talked about it briefly earlier today.
from a basement.
From a basement, Elliott Smith. Yes.
I'm surprised though that you
Well, here's the
based
thing.
off our converse
It's I feel like it's a little bit of a cheat because out of all the artists you've given me, I think for the most part, his work I knew the most. Like I heard that compilation, like kind of a greatest hits that they released, Introduction to Elliott Smith album with arguably, I guess, his like biggest songs. So like I knew a couple songs on that album. I knew Pretty Ugly and I knew Twilight. And then I've listened to Either or before in its entirety, and that is probably my favorite Elliott Smith album out of the, I guess, two that I've heard. But so I feel like it's a little bit of a cheat because I knew going into it what the style was going to be, his type of lyrics, his vocals. But for some reason, I I don't know, I thought like, but way back in the day when you were getting into him, I just remember reading some of the song titles and thought it was like going to be one of his like weird experimental kind of albums. And like for some reason, like what's the last song on the album called? The long title, like
a distorted reality is necessity to be free.
for some reason, I thought that song. I don't. Maybe I heard a different song of his. I thought it was like a really dark, heavy song, like
Is
really
it
just
not?
dark. No, it has that's the song that has like the Paul McCartney kind of like riff. Like
Yeah.
lyrically, yeah, but like musically, it is not the song I thought it was. So there were some surprises in that album for sure, but it still had some of that what I'm talking about, like Coast to Coast opener. That's like a kind of a rock song with like electric guitars and drums, and it does have some kind of like
Noise
not
rock elements.
noise rock. I was gonna say like dissident kind of chords, but just definitely like it's like the one song on is it Cupid's Trick on Either or?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I could see what you're saying compared to the
Yeah.
rest of the
And
album.
there's some songs even on From a Basement, like a Shooting Star. Like
Yeah,
that
that's the other
song,
loud one.
and then that one is what I thought a lot of the album was going to be like. And if that was the case, I wouldn't like it as much. But it had a lot of songs that were more like Pretty Ugly or more like Twilight. Um, and I don't know. I just felt like Elliot is, even though he's not like in my top 10 artists of all time, I think he's so talented. It's just that I'm not always reaching for his type of talent, if that makes sense.
No, that
So
does make sense.
so I, as like an album, I thought it was great. I thought it was very cohesive. That was my only really. I mean, even the songs I don't love, like I felt they made sense. I mean, the only one that didn't was that ostrich and chirping one, which I
We don't
was
talk about
literally,
that.
it's literally the producer, him just wanting to like feel like he added something to the album. But yeah, like I think it's a great album, and I would have it on vinyl if I've been able to find a copy. I think I'm gonna have to buy it online because my record store actually lately has been putting more of his records in their collection.
Oh, nice.
I've seen Either or, I've seen his self-titled one and the introduction one, which I almost bought, but I decided
See,
against
I
it.
don't
But
think I've seen the introduction one in person, but I think I've
yeah,
seen just about all his other studio
yeah,
ones.
but I have
Less than
not
them.
seen the From the Basement on Hill. So, but that's literally out of all the albums you've given me, that's the one I want to get next. So
So I will say, well, I'll say a couple things. I will say, it is a double LP, the version I have, and I think it sounds great. I mean, you're the expert though, so I'll let you decide that when you do acquire it.
yeah,
But what I was going to say though about it, the reason I didn't think it was going to be in your favorites is because, I mean, I guess you did send me like a picture of you listening to the album, like a screenshot of Coast to Coast. But there were some songs that I feel like you didn't really discuss much or didn't feel like you had a lot to say. Songs like Strung Out Again, A Passing Feeling. But kind of thinking about it, there was some that you really did like Let's Get Lost, Don't Go Down. Um, and I guess the reason why I was thinking maybe some of the other albums like Morrison Hotel is because we've talked about that one a little more. And I guess we haven't really talked about Odyssey and Oracle too much, but I do remember, with the exception of like Butcher's Tale, you went ahead and actually rearranged the album perfectly, I will say. Um, and I don't remember you disliking the songs as much as maybe the weakest moments off from a basement.
Yeah, I think just the thing is like even though like even though it's gonna be contradiction because even though I just said Elliot's not someone I'm reaching for on a daily basis, that style of music I feel like is just a little bit more up my alley than the Zombies because I find the Zombies to be more like the Beach Boys, and the
Fair.
Beach Boys are more I feel like your style of music than mine. If that makes sense.
No, totally get it.
Yeah, but again, and I loved and the Beach Boys album too. I really enjoyed it, and the Zombies album. But there was have to be, I guess, more like Elliot, more in a mood for. But the Elliot one, I when I go back to that album, even the songs I don't love, like Shooting Star, there are parts that I'm starting to enjoy more and more. So it was a little bit of a grower for sure.
Understandable. I could
So
definitely see that.
and then I'm so number three is one you guessed for number two. So I'm not even gonna have you guess because you were and like I said, they're interchangeable. So yeah, Shangri La Da, Stone Temple Pilots, probably my third favorite. It's the other one I have on vinyl.
Orange vinyl
Orange vinyl. Again, I
with
bought it because
coma
it was
cut
on.
off.
Yes, I bought it because it was on sale. Which so that one I didn't go out of my way, but kind of because it wasn't just I found it at the record store. Um, that one I actually spun the other day on Scott's birthday, and I
Good man.
forgot. I forgot how good some of the songs were. Like there were still some songs that I'm like, you know, like the closing. Well, even the closing track kind of grew on me, but
That solo rips.
like Hollywood Bitch still like isn't my favorite. The opener still isn't my favorite. But like Coma, like that one, I don't know on the first couple listens, I was a little unsure. That one rocks. But then like especially the slower acoustic ones, like I forgot how great and I already love those to begin with, but I forgot how great they were, whether it's Bipolar Bear, um is it a song for
Song for
sleeping?
sleeping, yeah.
Yeah, that one I forgot how much I loved it.
Like what I
Um
think is really great is that the middle of the album, there is that sweet spot where it like kind of slows down a bit and gets atmospheric. Now, for me, I would count Wonderful in the run, but I don't know if you would count it.
Yeah,
But
I,
like,
I do. It's like the weakest out of the bunch, but I do. Yeah.
it's that stretch. Yeah, of Wonderful, Black Again, Hello, It's Late, and then
Yeah,
I would
Black
say
Again's
Too
one of
Cool
my
Queenie
favorites.
as well. I think you did like that
Yes,
one.
that one. Yeah, but I almost don't count it because it's more. I consider Too Cool Queenie one of the more rock ones,
It is, yeah.
but like because it's not the acoustic kind of with the electric keyboards, not that, but it's definitely it's more in that vein of like Interstate Love Song than it is Coma, right?
Right, right.
So yeah, so that's probably my number three. And if I had to do like a number four, it would probably be the Doors album because that's the third album out of the ones you give me that I bought on vinyl. And that one I my record store just recently got it because I go there every couple months, and ever since you gave it to me, I've looked for it and I've never seen it. And then I finally saw it last month, and I hadn't listened to it in a while, so I was almost tempted not to get it because I was like, oh, maybe I don't like it as much as I did, but I bought it and I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed it. Even like the only song that still hasn't grown on me is Say It because
Maggie
yeah,
McGill
no, that one I
lives
do
on
not
a
like.
hill.
But even like the ones like in the middle, the rock ones that I didn't love, like those grew on me. So like that's the closer is
Like
the only
Land
one
Ho?
yeah, that one grew on me actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Land Ho's sick. I'm
The
glad
only
that one
one
grew
that
on
just
you.
didn't is the closer. Yeah. So
And
th-
understandable.
that one is a yeah, that'd be probably my fourth one.
And I'm guessing too that the Doors is more of something that you would listen to before Zombies, before Beach Boys. Like I know it doesn't sound like
Just
petty, but it's
just a
that
little bit, yeah. Just because
70s kind of.
it's a little bit more. I feel like it has a little bit more raw, which is why I like the Elliot probably more because Elliot's very raw. Even if the production is clean, his lyrics are raw. There's something about him that's always going to be raw. Where the Zombies and Beach Boys, I'm sure, can be raw, but I feel like they're less raw majority of the time. If that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. No, I would agree with you. I think that's fair.
So So now I just want to know, and you don't have to like pick a top three. You could just list whatever. Like, what do you feel like have been some of your favorite songs from any of the albums that I've given you?
Hmm. That is a good question.
Just whatever comes to mind. Like if you think of an album like Hot Thoughts, Narrow Stairs, like even if those aren't in your top, or even like Phoebe Bridgers, like those albums that we haven't really talked about yet, like are there any songs that like you put on your like? Because I know you do the like, you give it a heart on Spotify and then it adds it to a playlist. Like, what are some of those songs that are on that playlist?
Well, maybe I'll view it more like this. And I will say, I think for pretty much all the albums you've given me, I think I do like all the songs because I like them enough where if they were to show up, I wouldn't automatically skip it. And I think that gives me the opportunity to have the song grow on me a little more. Um, but I'm gonna rank or not rank. I'll list a few songs that I think about actually often that that get
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah.
stuck in my head more.
Yes.
Um, so I really like is it Kyoto from
Kyoto, yep.
Punisher?
Punisher, Phoebe Bridgers, yep. That's one of my favorites from that album. Probably my favorite.
Yeah, that's a great one. I really enjoy it. And unlike the rest of the album, I don't think you really have to be in the mood to listen to it. You can just listen to it and it's pretty
Yeah.
great. A song that grew on me a lot, Zoo Station. That one's just kind of a bop straight out the back,
Yeah,
you
that's a
know?
fun opener. Yeah, I don't know if I put it in my top three on the album, but
I
like
wouldn't put it top three, but
every time it comes on, like every time I go and play the album, I'm like, oh, I'm in for a great, 40 minutes or 50 minutes because this is a great song.
honestly, the first three songs of Hot Thoughts are really great and they flow well. When I was checking out that album, just kind of be like, oh yeah, let me hear this album. Like I was like, wow, this album's great already, and we're three songs in. Let me just get maybe like one or two more in here. Oh, In Rainbows is an album that did grow on me a lot more. It's still not, top five of the albums you've given me, but I think a lot of those songs stand out stronger to me individually than maybe before. Gosh, I don't know which. That's, I mean, those songs are so moody. It's hard to pick one that I can just objectively say stands out above the rest. But I mean, okay, one more. Kath. That is one. I love that riff so
Yeah,
much.
that's a great song. Now,
But no,
there's a song you haven't mentioned yet. I'm surprised you haven't. And I think
I
it's
forgot to
because,
mention it.
well, I think because you're mostly going through the albums we haven't talked about yet, right? The ones that aren't your top three.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
feel like there's a song from one of those top three albums that like you love that you haven't talked about yet.
Yeah, okay. If I were to go like probably like the top songs, like the big boy songs,
Mhm.
I was really into Candy's Room right off the
Yeah,
bat.
that's what I was waiting for. Candy Room.
Yeah, that
Bruce
one
Springsteen.
I didn't burn myself out, but now I would probably pick some other songs. I actually really enjoy Badlands now.
Yeah.
That
Oh, I'm glad
jumped to
because
the top.
that one, yeah, that one. It's like I kind of thought you wouldn't like because it's like his kind of anthemic, patriotic
Heartland
sounding,
Rock.
yeah, Heartland Rock. But like whenever I put on the album, it's like Zoo Station. Is Badlands a top three? Probably not. I'd probably go like Candy's Room, then like maybe I don't know Darkness, and then maybe Prove It All Night or something. But like Badlands
Right,
is
right.
is is classic.
And the lyrics are so good.
Yeah,
Oh
that one
my
it pumps
gosh.
you up. Everything about the song just pumps you up.
And then you just get into Adam Reeves the Kane. Okay, sorry. I'm gonna talk about the whole album if I keep going. um, Title track, fully completely. That one, as well as the
Yeah,
opening track, that one grew on me as well. Another great opener that sets up the
yeah.
energy for the whole
Courage,
album.
yes.
Um, and then what was the other album I said? Oh,
Uh,
I was saying Narrow Stairs or Odd Soul. Yeah,
yeah.
so Kath and I almost forgot about Long Division too.
Yes,
That
Long
one's
Division. That's a sleep.
great.
That's an underrated song.
And then how do you say the first song from the album, like Brixby Canyon Bridge?
Bixby Canyon Bridge. That's my
Bixby.
favorite. Yeah, that one is that's like to me got everything you want in a song. Like it has dynamics for miles.
Yeah, see that's the thing about Narrow Stairs is I feel like some even though some of the weaker songs I feel like they may kind of suffer from some of the same pitfalls. Nothing bad about the or anything, but when
Yeah,
they get it right on the album, they really get it right.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, Yeah, those are
Those
some
are
of
some good
my
ones.
favorites. I know I just listed like 30 songs, but
Now I'm gonna need your help because even though I just bragged earlier today to you about me remembering song titles well, I feel like some of my favorites from these albums you've given me are just like either they're just harder song titles to remember for some reason. So I'll give you some of mine. Um,
okay.
some
Shoot.
runner ups. Even though this is an album we haven't really talked about today, the first album you ever gave me, Tom Waits,
Mm.
Step Right Up, such a fun song.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that one. That's the one of the songs that I don't like, even though I don't go back to that album a ton, admittedly. Like that's a song where if I just played it right now, I'd be like jamming to it. I'm like, yeah, this is a great song.
But that one's not even
Um,
your favorite from there, if I recall.
um,
Oh,
what was my
change of
favorite?
heart?
If you remind me what
He's
my
up
favorite is.
against the register. Invitation to the Blues.
Oh yeah, no, I might go back and change it now. Like
Yeah?
I think Invitation to the Blues is a better song, but I think the one I want to listen to the most from that album is Step Right Up.
Yeah, that is the one that like you can't help but love.
Yeah, for sure. Um, and then let's see here. A couple other like you know ones I want to mention is there's like three Beach Boys ones that I really like. Um, one of them I feel like is there's a couple songs I'm gonna call cheat songs, and I'm just gonna say them now. You're So Good to Me. I kind of knew that one before going into the album because that's one that you would kind of cover, and there's one you showed me before giving me the album. So that's a
Mm-hmm.
cheat. If I had to pick like out of all these albums, Days of the Week might be my favorite, but that was one I knew before the album, so I can't count that. Same with like Elliott Smith's Twilight or Pretty Ugly,
Are you
like
telling
those.
me that like I know all the songs that aren't the best songs?
No, no, no. I'm just saying like
You're like I have the best taste. I know the
I'm just
best
saying like
cuts.
those are songs like I knew beforehand that I didn't discover because of you giving me the album. But they're
Right,
song like
for
they're
sure.
not like Days of the Week. I wouldn't. It's definitely not STP's most popular song or popular single, but it's one that I remember you playing when you got into them a lot, and that was one, admittedly, that even though I wasn't a fan of the band at the time, I was like, yeah, this song is a bop. So like the Beach Boys though, like the other songs, Help Me Rhonda, California Girls, those are also ones that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Bangers.
And then the Zombies, another like cheat one would be This Will Be Our Year. That because that one I knew because of the Foo Fighters cover. So but from that album, the opener, the cell,
Carousel 44.
yeah, that's a hard one to remember, by the way. Like the fact that it has a number in it, I already have terrible memory with numbers. But yeah, that's one that I really enjoyed. Um, and then um another album we haven't really talked about today, Mark Lanigan's.
Oh, Phantom Radio.
The Yeah, Fan Radio. The song that I really enjoyed was the one where he sings like "You Don't Love Me Anymore." Um,
Um, is that my Torn Red Heart?
yes, yeah. That's it. Yeah, that one I really really enjoyed from that album. Um,
Which that one kind of surprised me how much you liked it.
I love the mood of it. I just love the mood.
It is a memorable vibe. I do have to say it stands out.
Yeah, and then the Doors. There's a couple I could say, but I really love Blue Sunday because just like kind of like with the um Rip Torn Heart, it has just like a vibe to it that I really enjoy. But then the song from that album that I know you said isn't like one of your favorites, but I just love I love how fun it is The Spy.
Right, right.
I just love how I just love the style it goes for. It's like I know it's like based off a book and the music fits like the lyrics perfectly.
I will say something that I think people don't really talk about with the Doors is they have this skill. They don't do it all the time, but they can pull off these really relaxed sounding songs. And I think that is one too, where even though it's like a rock blues song, it's very chill, very very casual, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah, and then of course if I had to say some of my favorites, they're going to be from those top 3 albums. So, um, you know, from Elliott, besides the ones I knew before, Let's Get Lost probably is actually, other than like Twilight and Pretty Ugly before, like I really like Let's Go. And I know it's like a shorter song and it's just him and acoustic guitar. There's not a lot of production, but I love that song. And that one gets stuck in my head a lot. Um, And then we talked a lot about the STP already. Days of the Week is my favorite on the album, but like for new ones, A Song for Sleeping, I really, really like that one. Every time I hear it, I'm like, I forget how good it is. And then um Black Again, which is one that
Mm-hmm.
I thought I would
Mm-hmm.
not like, but it's so catchy. It's just so it's so great.
Very emotional too. Like I think that's a song where that word fits perfect for it.
Yeah. And then Incubus, there's actually half the album I could say. Honestly, like
Glad to hear that.
I mean, Diamonds and Coal was like an early favorite of mine because it was just so catchy and it was like this perfect kind of sometimes my favorite genre of music where it's like rock, but it's just got a little bit of like a pop element to it to give it its catchiness, but then to give
Right.
it reason to like still be solid music, like real instruments. That was a bad way of describing that, but you know what I'm saying. Um, and then the title track, as far as like rock ones, that's one of my favorites. Rogues, Rogues might actually be my favorite. Like that one is so good. Like it's not as catchy as the ones I just mentioned, but there's really no flaw to Rogues. Like it's just such a solid song all the way through.
I'll say this about Rogues. It's one of those songs where like I feel like when you first hear the album, maybe because it's near the end, like you might not remember it just based off the title. But then when you hear it, you're like, oh, okay, it's this one. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is good. Oh, this
Yeah,
this chorus is great. Oh, this song does not stop. It just keeps getting great, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah, no, exactly. And then even though I didn't want to like it as much as I do, like that's a great song too.
Dig is beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, those are my favorite from some of the albums you gave me. And then let's just, I mean, I kind of feel like we're gonna have some of the favorite episodes. I think you and I both agree, like our favorite episodes are probably the guest ones we've done. Not because we don't enjoy just talking to each other, but adding on a guest is always just fun because you just get a different perspective. And especially when you have someone on the podcast like, my friend Chris, where like us, he's really into the lore of the music. Then you have someone like your friend Ishan or Bryce who plays the instruments and can give us that new perspective. And then, with Tessa, like when we did the Dessa album, she got us into kind of a really new, definitely a different style of genre of music that we've talked about on the podcast. And we really dove into the lyrics, which I'm always really about. And I know sometimes we don't do that as much. Um,
And
but
her not being a musician, that did really not like force us like we couldn't talk about the music, but that did kind of shift the focus of the discussion, you know? Where like
yeah,
with Ishan, like I don't think he even knows the lyrics to half the songs. So, but
yeah,
um
and having Tessa on too, the chemistry we have too is going to be hard to beat. Three siblings on a podcast like that. That's where I feel too like we get that extra bonus of like why listen to us over other people, like friends that talk about music. There's a lot of podcasts where it's like two friends, but yeah, I feel like that's something we bring to the table is that we're brothers.
yeah. And
So
I would say I think my favorite episodes, just maybe overall, would be the ones with Chris actually. Because I felt like I got so much out of it. Him just being a complete brainiac with with music like that. And I will never forget too, because we filmed both those episodes on the same day, and so of course in between them we took a little break. I went to go use the bathroom or something, get a drink, and I came back and I didn't even say nothing. I just listened to you guys talk about like petty live albums for like 30 straight minutes. Just this concentrated, focused, yet just natural conversation about it. It was amazing.
yeah.
So I really
Um,
love those episodes.
yeah, and this might be a good time to talk about what we hope to do in the future. Because we're not we kind of toyed with the idea of, now that it's been a year, this is going to be like season 2 of the podcast. We were thinking of doing a new theme song, a new artwork for the podcast, but I like that's just so extra. And maybe down the road we still will do that. I don't think it's like a terrible idea, but I just like the flow that we're going now. So I don't think we're planning on changing things too much. Like we're still doing our album for album every month because I that to me is some of my favorite episodes. But we still want to have more guest episodes. We're right now currently planning another few episodes with Chris. Um, Preferably, we're trying to do Pearl Jam because that's one band the three of us share that we all three love.
We're also thinking
Um,
about like maybe like Foo Fighters.
Foo Fighters, yeah. Um, and I especially want to do a Pearl Jam one where we either talk about a Pearl Jam album we find underrated, especially because there's one, I won't give it away, but there's one album the three of us all agree is like probably their most underrated. Or an idea that I've been throwing out that I want to finally do, and I think Pearl Jam is the perfect artist, especially for the three of us, is an idea that I copied from a YouTube music show I watch called Taste Like Music, where we do like a fantasy draft, like, like for fantasy football. And instead of picking like players on a football team, we're picking songs and we're trying to each form our own set list. And once you pick a song, the other two people cannot pick it. It's gone. It's off the table. And we would give ourselves like maybe a 20 song set list limit. And you have to right then and there, when you pick a song, you have to place it specifically on the set list where you want it, whether it's song 1, song 5, the last song of your main set, the first song of your encore. And I think that'd be really fun because Pearl Jam has a lot of songs and they play a lot of their deep cuts. So it's not like, picking a deep cut would be weird. That would be right on par for Pearl Jam. And there's so many songs. I feel like that would be really fun to do.
Yeah, that would be pretty sick, and Chris would be the guy for that. If we
Yeah, especially for Pearl Jam. And and he might be on a future episode where if I give you another Bruce album, like we did the Bruce album I think before we did the two with him, the Petty and the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
But I definitely think he should be on the Bruce one because he knows probably even more about Bruce than I do.
Didn't he get you into Bruce? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he was the person who got me into Bruce. So
but,
I have him. I think.
Another question: did he or you get him into Petty?
I got him to Petty. That was probably one of the few artists where he was looking to get into him, I think, already because of his connections with like Traveling Wilburys, Bob Dylan, George Harrison, the Beatles. And I had just gotten into Petty and basically had just probably gotten into all of his albums. So then I was like, oh, here are the ones you should start with. And then, yeah, he fell in love.
Awesome.
And so, yeah, we'll have more guest episodes, who knows, maybe new guests, but definitely a return of probably all the guests we've had on before, and we'll hopefully still do some more game episodes. Those have been some of my favorites, whether it's like a quiz or whether it's us guessing each other's rankings on an album. I always find
us only being able to name like 30% of the Beatles catalog.
Yeah. I know 31% because I know their new song now and then. And we're still going to do album appreciations, band appreciations. When Tony gets ready to release his sophomore album, we'll do episodes on that.
When we get ready to release our album,
our collaborative album, we'll do episodes on that for sure. Maybe at the end of this year, we're hoping to do like a review type episode. I have like a top 10 list of new releases this year. And then like my favorite vinyl box sets that came out or reissues, favorite EPs, concerts, hopefully we'll do more concert reviews in the future, even if it's concerts that we haven't attended together, So True. Yeah, so we're not planning to change things up too much, but I still see I think we even started writing like a notes on our phones of episode ideas that we're planning on doing, because every time Tony and I talk, even if it's not during the podcast or recording of a podcast episode, we'll go like, oh, that would be a good idea for an episode. And then we jot it down and then we come back to it when we get the time. So
yeah, and it seems like a lot of them may actually be more like kind of open discussions. And I think those are really fun too. Because who knows where they're going to go,
Yeah. And yeah, because like the album problem ones kind of seem like they're structured a little bit because like we do the same thing each time, we give a background on the artists that we picked for the other person and you just kind of review the songs and album as a whole. But yeah, there's definitely some like more open-ended discussions that we can definitely have where it's not so reliant on research, but just personal opinions and feelings,
For sure.
And I think to close out this anniversary episode, I want to do a quick version of what would have been the first episode of this podcast. I think
Oh,
we should go and at least name our top 3 favorite Pearl Jam album openers, because I don't know if we'll ever post the original video. I have the audio file somewhere. I just have to find it, and there would be really no way of editing it because it's one whole file instead of separate audio tracks. So it would be rough on the ears for sure. And I think we would sound pretty winded because it was our first time recording on Zoom, a podcast, all of that. But
and it was pretty long. We could have trimmed the fat.
yeah. So, and then let's just do that now. Let's trim the fat. Let's just, just for fun, what are our top 3? Um, you can go first.
If only this was the top four.
I'll
But
let you do an honorable mention. What is your honorable mention?
honorable mention is Last Exit. It's pretty straightforward, but it does set a good tone for an album, which could be better. But it's a strong way to start. It's memorable to me. Cool lyrics, cool groove. It's in 5. But if I had to do top 3, are we going number 1 first or number 3?
No, 3. So like, yeah,
Okay.
counting up.
So I would probably say Life Wasted, which is pretty cool for a band's, like an album, like 15 years in their career to be one of their best openers. That's great. So probably go Life Wasted. It's just really well rounded, a lot of cool things happening, good amount of parts in it. I would then do Brain of J, because not only am I in love with those heavy guitars, it just gets you pumped right off the bat. The only thing that keeps it from being number 1 is it does slow down a little awkwardly for an intro song. But I mean, that's more of a nitpick at the end of the day. And then number 1, Go. Sorry, I almost butchered the title. Go is just everything you need in an opener. It's fast, it's heavy, it's catchy, and it leaves you at the end of the song just going, what's next? And if that's not the goal of an opener, then I don't know what is. Boom, easy peasy.
So our lists are very similar when it comes to like the top end. I know we have, when we did the original podcast episode, we definitely differed near the bottom end for sure, in the middle, because I have kind of 2 honorable mentions. One, I think Getaway, even more so than Lightning Bolt, more so than Life Wasted. Lightning Bolt is an album that most fans don't love, and it's one that I loved when I first got into the Pearl Jam. Like, it was my first new album from them, and then over time, I'm like, yeah, this isn't their best work, but I still think Getaway, the album opener, is still one of the best songs on that album, and I do think it's super solid. But my real, runner up, number 4, would probably be Brain of J. I'm shocked it's not top 3 for me, because Yield is my favorite album of all time, favorite Pearl Jam album. I think sonically it's great. I think it doesn't quite. I feel like Yield is such a different sounding album than Brain of J that maybe that's why I don't have it top 3. But as a Pearl Jam song, it's fantastic. But I think maybe just as an opener, it's, I feel like it's definitely the heaviest song on the album, other than like Do the Evolution, and even then Do the Evolution's not as heavy. So that's my runner up. Number 3, though, I share with you Life Wasted.
Nice.
It's just so, I don't know. I've always loved Life Wasted. I love how fast it is. Like, it just has such a great driving tempo. The bridge, it's like Brandon J, where like it slows down a lot in the bridge, but the bridge is like so beautiful, like, which is weird because the song is like just a fast rock song, and lyrically it's kind of dark. It's like he wrote it after going to Johnny Ramone's funeral, and but there's so many things I love about Life Wasted, and like you said, like, it's such a great song for them later in their career. So that's my number 3. Number 2 is Last Exit, which was your honorable mention. On one of my least favorite Pearl Jam albums, probably my second least favorite Pearl Jam album, Vitology, I think Last Exit is the best song. It doesn't have that like single fatigue that Tony and I kind of talked about off before
air.
we started off air, yeah, earlier today. And not even single fatigue, but like the singles on Vitology, I think, are weak. Like, Not For You and Spin a Black Circle are not their best singles or songs. I don't like some of the real songs in the album, like Immortality, Term of Christ. And then there's so many filler songs. But
I love how this went from like a shortened ranking list, and now you're just talking shit about Vitology.
I will always find time to talk shit about Vitology. But Last Exit is a great opener. It's like Life Wasted, where the speed of the song I think is its advantage, but I just love how like upbeat it is. Like it's kind of one of the Pearl Jam songs that has kind of a major kind of happy sounding sound. Uh,
Wait, what?
yeah, like it's not like Life Wasted sounds like kind of a dark song, but like the speed of, I don't know, it's hard to describe. Like Last Exit sounds kind of happy to me. Like it's just like a fun song. Eddie Vedder screams great in the middle. I love just like his vocals the whole time. And I love the drums. And yeah, I love everything about Last Exit. It's probably my favorite songs out of all of these, but I agree with you.
Wow.
Number one, go. I think not only is it such a solid song on its own, but it sets up verses so well. Um, I just love how it's so weird. Like it's it's definitely like the like I don't know what you call it, like the not the measures, the dun 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 dun, dun what do you call that? It's
Oh, like the syncopated part.
yeah, yeah, like it's they do it in such a weird way where the song, because I think this is the song on 4/4, like the main part of the song,
I think it probably is. Yeah.
but the syncopation, the dun is so cool. It's so heavy. You know, the bass tone on it is great. The yells are great. Yeah, I yeah,
That lead
go
guitar
is
in the chorus. It's simple, but it's perfect.
yeah, like the solos are great. Some of Mike McCready's best, and yeah, it's. I think even though like I said, I think I actually might prefer Life Wasted and Last Exit over it. I think as an album opener, I think it's their best.
Yeah,
So
I mean it's bitching.
for sure. Well, that's our condensed version of this podcast, or of that first episode of the podcast. And yeah, I think that was a fitting way to end this anniversary episode. I was going to sing happy birthday both to you and the podcast,
And
but
binaural.
but we all know that's a singing happy birthday not with like a family or multiple people around is kind of awkward. So I'm gonna spare the cringe, but happy
Okay.
birthday to you and happy birthday to our podcast that we both had fun creating and continuing. And yeah, we're gonna keep delivering episodes every week as best as we can. Really quick, we might as well give our album for album suggestions that because the next two episodes are gonna be album for album. So in honor of our 1 year anniversary, I'm giving you your next hip album, 1 year almost to the week. I'm giving you my favorite album of theirs and an album that's celebrating its, I think, 25 years anniversary this year. Their album Phantom Power.
And then I am giving you, Rico, a personal favorite of mine because I was so pleased by how much you liked the album I gave you. Incubus's, that's kind of a weird way to say it. I don't like that. Make Yourself by Incubus.
Incubi, maybe? Is that the plural Incubus? But no,
Yes.
I'm excited because that was, Incubus, like Renee's being my favorite of the year that you've given me. I'm excited to dive into
It
more of theirs.
I'm a little worried because I don't want you to be disappointed if it's a step in the wrong direction for you, but I at least want to know your thoughts.
Well,
I
and
think it'll at least be a good discussion.
that's the exact same way I feel about Phantom Power. So next week, I think Phantom Power will be next, but it'll be one of those two next. So for the next 2 weeks. So listen to those albums if you get the chance. And until then, we hope you take care and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye.